Reservists often face different challenges than active duty service members. Can you describe what your life is like?
I guess between work and school, there isn't much room for anything else. I'm, like I said, I'm still serving in the Army Reserves while I'm going to school. In general, I think in the reserves, people underestimate the challenge of balancing your career and with the rest of your life, including your civilian career or school and your family. So, and it's also difficult not having an accessible full-time staff or one that you would find on active duty. So, the military provides so many benefits, so much of your day-to-day needs, whether that's food or housing, healthcare, or childcare, and you don't think about it, and you don't realize how much you benefit from that until you don't have these services readily available for you. Even having a support network of people who have been in like circumstances, being in the armed forces, you sort of learn to speak a different language, and you assimilate to a completely different culture. Specifically, going back to school full-time as a law student, the culture is in such stark contrast to the military's. It's competitive in a different way. And everybody's sort of out for themselves, especially with an economy and an employment market that's as bleak and ominous as we're facing now. And everything is very unpredictable, so it's a very scary time. But in the military, we know that, and it's ingrained in us, that teamwork is how you accomplish a mission. Teamwork is how you get through times like these, and being reliable and motivating your peers, looking out for your battle buddy. And we don't have that. A transition outside of the military can be very, like I said, isolating, very scary, and seem very dismal.
What would you say to other women transitioning out of the military?
The isolation that you feel when you don't have an immediate support group or this community of people who can recognize some of the things that you've done or been through. In my experience, when I do find a service member or former service member who has done the same things, or more often than not, they're a male counterpart. And so there's a whole dynamic or specific experience of being a woman in the military that would make a transition that much harder to deal with. But the advice I would give is to surround yourself with support, use your resources, know that there are resources out there, your family's a resource, your friends are a resource, even the Service Women's Action Network is a resource.
What was your biggest challenge transitioning out of the military?
Well, I'm still serving in the reserves, but again, I enlisted when I was very young, and I am a queer service member, so I spent most of my young adulthood hiding who I really was because of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. It really forced me to separate everything between my personal and professional life. I think it's demoralizing, especially in the military, because these elements inherently overlap simply because of the nature of our job. And so separating your personal and professional lives, while it's a good thing to know how to do, it can also be a bad thing if it constricts you. And I think that the circumstances that you're required and that you volunteered to overcome as a service member really require support from home. And when you don't have that because Don't Ask, Don't Tell didn't allow you to, or because even now the Defense of Marriage Act still plainly won't allow it, it's very isolating and it becomes an impairment, the effects of which have become very apparent in my life now, even away from full-time military duty and even post Don't Ask, Don't Tell repeal.
What does Veterans Day mean to you?
Veterans Day is, it's a special time to remember our servicemen and women, living and dead, who for 235 years stood up in defense of this great country. All service members, they're even those who have gone unrecognized, because for whatever reason, especially now after repeal, it's important to remember all service members, as diverse as we are now. And really, it's as simple as that.